What do you like most about the Patriots in this matchup?
Yeah, the vibes are certainly high. I mean, who saw this coming where they were able to go into Cincinnati, get a win, and now they're going into the home opener kind of feeling themselves a little bit, which is a good thing. You want this to be a meaningful season for as long as it possibly can. And certainly as we get into the home opener, there's optimism that this team could go 2-0, which is something I think would be crazy that we were talking about maybe in the summertime, that this team could be 2-0 to start the season. But I do think it's a possibility because, some of the things that happened in that Cincinnati game, specifically the Bengals making mistakes and letting the Patriots kind of will their way to a victory because they were playing sound football. The same things can apply here for the Seattle Seahawks. You look in that game against Denver in week 1, 2 safeties that they let up in that game. If all of a sudden those things start to happen and they start to shoot themselves in the foot and the Patriots continue to play sound football and really just kind of dictate the game at their own pace, that's going to help them en route to going possibly 2-0. Specifically for players, though, to me, Keion White's the guy that I think you should feel best about going into a game like this. Similar to the Patriots, the Seahawks have some offensive line issues, and you have a player in Keion White who can be a game wrecker. We saw that in week 1, 2.5 sacks. I believe he had a forced fumble in there as well. He's someone who could continue to kind of dictate this game on the way that the Patriots want to. If they are able to contain Geno Smith and slow down that offense and almost turn this away from being a potential track meet, that's going to help them possibly win this game on Sunday.
All right, and this is no surprise, but the Patriots are not favored in this game. And Tyler, I did read your prediction for this game on CBSSports.com. You had the Seahawks, but Kenneth Walker III, their star running back, he keeps missing practice with that oblique injury. Does that change how you view this game?
Yeah, this is a tough game to kind of peg down because of a couple of different things, right? You mentioned some injury issues with Kenneth Walker. Arguably one of the more underrated backs in the NFL. He had 100 yards and a touchdown in week 1. And I don't think he's talked about in that same realm as these elite running backs in the NFL. But certainly when he's cooking, he is as good as anyone. So to not have him in that offense, certainly a blow for Seattle. I do think Zach Charbonnet is someone who could carry the load a little bit. He was drafted relatively high for the organization not too long ago. So they will lose some if he's not there, but overall, I do think that they'll be fine. And obviously, when you have a team going from West Coast to East Coast, there's some questions there as well. So it's a tough game to peg down. I think the last line that I saw, the Seahawks were giving up a field goal and a half, which is always a little tricky there when you have that 0.5, that hook in there as well. But I do have some questions still about the Patriots. And as much as we can be encouraged about that week 1 win, I do still think that there are some lumps that we have yet to see truly reveal themselves there. The Bengals were giving away the football a decent amount in that game, and they were allowing, as I was referencing, the Patriots to play an exact kind of game of football that they want to. What happens when it turns into something other than that? What happens when you have to throw a little bit more than you're used to? You can't just give the ball to Ramondre Stevenson, allow him to make plays. I wonder if that's what's going to happen here with Seattle because they're a little bit more of a sound defense than the Cincinnati Bengals. And I just have some doubts that they'll be gifted as many opportunities as they were in week 1.
Yeah, I picked against the Patriots in week 1. And as soon as that game unfolded, I was regretting it. I'm picking the Patriots this week to eke out a victory against the Seahawks. And you just hit on the Patriots offensive part of things a little bit there. And this is an interesting matchup because it is 2 first-year head coaches and first-year head coaches that are more defensive-minded. But I want to hit on the offensive side of things with the Patriots here because, as you just mentioned, they relied heavily on that running game in week 1. What do you think we'll see in the Patriots passing game on Sunday?
Well, this is where it kind of gives me some pause because there's a couple of instances here that we still have yet to see from the Patriots. As much as we are encouraged about that win, there are some lumps, there are some questions. They were the team that gave up the highest pressure rate in the NFL in week 1. There were some issues along that offensive line in pass protection that I think kind of went unnoticed because they won the football game. But again, if all of a sudden we're talking about Jacoby Brissett needing to pass a little bit more, I think those warts on the offensive line, specifically in pass protection, could be a key issue there. And another thing, too, is that Seattle, a little bit underrated in terms of their secondary. They allowed 150 or fewer yards 5 times dating back to last season. That's tied for 5th most in the NFL. And I know that you could probably look at, last week's game against the Denver Broncos and say, well, they were able to contain Bo Nix because he's a rookie quarterback on the road in his first career start. I agree with you, but also there's a little bit more there that this secondary can kind of apply onto you. So if all of a sudden they're shutting you down through the air and you're really only making your offense one-dimensional, it's tough to win football games that way. Yes, they were able to do it in week 1, but again, that was through a lot of help from the Cincinnati Bengals giving you the ball in key areas of the field.
One of the stories that really came out this week was that the Patriots have a rally cry. Take them to the hill, which was something that translated from training camp, and it was something that they were yelling on the sideline late in that game against the Bengals. I mean, how much do you enjoy to hear that the Patriots are turning into, it's just 1 week, but they have that grinded out mentality of, hey, we're going to push it to the limits with our bodies with this team and try to eke everything out that we can?
Well, it's nice to see that they have a personality, right? I think that's something that we always long for with these teams locally, whether it's the long hair with the Red Sox back in the day or Mbutu with the Celtics. If this turns into some sort of a rallying cry for the team and identity, I think that that's great. Obviously, the do your job mantra was something under Bill Belichick for plenty of years. But if all of a sudden take them to the hill is this new Patriots mantra, I think that's really exciting because especially early in the season, they can pride themselves on being the most conditioned, the most ready-made teams in terms of from a physical standpoint early on. When we talk about the NFL now, we say, okay, well, the first kind of month or so is a little bit of a slog because a lot of these teams don't play their stars in the preseason, and you see some sloppy football early on. I think we saw that throughout week 1, specifically in our game against Cincinnati. And if all of a sudden the Patriots early in the season are more physically ready to go, you're going to see that in the 3rd and 4th quarter. And I think you saw that in week 1 where Ramondre Stevenson in particular was able to kind of run. It'll be a little bit more spry. And when you're going up against a defense that's a little bit more gassed than you would normally anticipate an NFL team would, well, that's going to help you win football games. So if that's something that the Patriots are now encapsulating, I think that's encouraging, specifically as we get through the early portions of this season.
What impressed you the most, Tyler, about what you saw from Gerard Mayo's coaching debut?
Well, I think there's a couple of different things. Obviously, the fact that they were just able to play sound football in all 3 phases and all those kind of cliches is encouraging. I remember us talking about what would constitute a successful season for the Patriots. And one of those storylines that we talked about was, can Gerard Mayo be the guy? Is he right to be the head coach to see you through a rebuild? And so far, and again, it's week 1, he's at least checked the box. He had his team ready to go. And specifically, I thought it was really impressive that he had the kind of gumption or the wherewithal to bench Chukwuezefor, who was starting at left tackle in replace of Adarian Lowe in that game. He was getting beat soundly early on in that game going up against Trey Hendrickson, and they were able to identify that, make the decision in your first ever game as a head coach. And that's not something that's really easy. You would say, okay, well, we're going into this game, we picked our starting 5 and we're going to stick with our starting 5. I don't even know if I'd fault you for that. I think a lot of people would point to that and say, well, you know what, that's just the Patriots offensive line issues. They haven't figured it out yet. But he saw an issue and did his best to patch it up in game. And so that, to me, I thought was most impressive. The fact that he was able to do that right out of the chute in week 1 in his first career game to make that type of a call, I thought that was great to see from Gerard Mayo.
Final thing before we let you go here, Tyler, what do you make of this Seahawks team in general? Do you think that they could be a playoff team?
Yeah, I'm bullish on the Seahawks. We do a lot of predictions at CBSSports.com, especially during the end of the summer where they're in that dead period of the NFL calendar. And so one of my predictions, and as we go through, is to determine which playoff teams are coming out of the conference. And I think that they very well could be. In my predictions, they are a playoff team as a wild card opponent. I don't think they're going to unseat the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC West, but I do like where that organization is going. Very similar to the New England Patriots. As you referenced, new head coach after the Pete Carroll tenure came to a close. I really like the hire of Ryan Grubb as their offensive coordinator, formerly of the University of Washington. That was a high-flying offense in the college game. I'm excited to see how that translates translates for them in the NFL with Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Tyler Lockett. I think that team could surprise a lot of people. Now, they did give up 2 safeties in week 1, so it kind of, makes me a little bit nervous when we're talking about how this team could execute going forward. But overall, defensively, they have a lot of studs. Offensively, we certainly know the names at the skill positions. It's going to come down to Geno Smith. Can he get back to that 2022 version of Geno Smith? And if he comes close to that, I think they rival for a playoff spot.
All right, well, the good vibes will be back at Foxborough because Malcolm Butler is returning. We'll be thinking about that Super Bowl 10 years ago when he made the big play against the Seahawks. When you say Seahawks Patriots, everybody is always going to think of that. But as it's related to Sunday, one team will be 2-0 unless it's a tie. But one team will be 2-0 by day's end. Hopefully it's the Patriots. We'll see what can happen on Sunday at Gillette Stadium. Tyler Sullivan, thanks for the time as always, and appreciate you joining us. And be sure to catch Patriots All Access tonight at 7 p.m. on WBZ. We go behind the scenes. Plus, Gerard Mayo sits down with Scott Zolak. And start your Sunday with Patriots Game Day at 11:30 a.m. on WBZ and CBS News Boston. The Pats and Seahawks play at 1 p.m. And then after the game, turn to TV 38 for the 5th quarter postgame show.